to start to open this 9 Internet Governance South School event. So please, the first guest could come to our table. We have Cláudio Lopes, who is the prosecutor of Rio de Janeiro State, Oscar Messano, the president of SSIG, and Hugo Ramos, the international director of Internet Governance, and also Pablo Savia Souto. So for us to start, I'd like to start. Before starting, indeed, I'd like to introduce our guests. I'd like to to throw my bottle on the floor, too. So Luca inspires us. So this is a new trend, the bottles on the floor. So in order to start, I'd like to say that this is the 9th edition of this school. This is an honor to have this school here at FGV. And the objectives of this school is to exchange ideas and learn from ourselves, and also that the participants become friends and partners for the future. So I'd like to spend the next 20 seconds. Please spend some time talking to your neighbor, uh, telling them who you are and why you are here in this Internet Governance Forum.
Bom, então, depois dessa introdução bem...
So after this introduction, unfortunately, we have to start our school. So I'd like to ask you, first of all, to finish your introduction. And in second place, I'd like to ask Paulo Sodré to introduce the school. Thank you very much. Thank you, Luca. Good morning, everyone. I'm the coordinator of the CTS here, and it's an honor to host the 9 school of South School Governance on Internet. I'd like to thank all the participants and sponsors and those who are here present, and Luca, who is organizing this meeting here. We at CTS, we have been working for 13 years with the impacts of technology in general, and the internet has acquired this larger dimension, the largest dimension that we could even imagine. It started with as a military project and a scholar project, and it expanded to households, cell phones, and it's part of our society, our structure of organization, although 3.7 billion do not have access to the internet. Today, presidents are elected, some rulers are deposed, and the political organization are being changed deeply with the internet advent, and parties which used to concentrate the political power, they have to face other structures that are coming up from the internet. And today, internet is a synonym of connection and access to knowledge and to follow up our daily lives. And when we are outside the internet, we are also inside the internet, because so many people have applied for a job and someone has looked up their profiles on the Facebook or social media, and their behavior was used to other ends. And then today, even when we are outside the internet, we are in the internet somehow. That's why that all this internet governance, all this management of this social tissue is fundamental to structure the society that we're going to have in in the next decades. We are not only speaking about applications, but we are speaking about internet governance and also governance of the social tissue of the next decades. So I'd like to thank you all on behalf of CTS, and CTS has worked since its beginning with a lot of important projects, like bringing the Creative Commons to discuss the knowledge framework, and we also worked with the Ministry of Justice to produce the the internet framework that is used in several other countries after that, and we have to advance a lot with this framework, but it was a first step that was very important to guarantee rights, and it's not a punishment model. So with this view, CTS expects to collaborate in this debate. So I'd like to thank you all and welcome you all, and let's start our works here. Thank you, Luca. Thank you, Pablo. So please, Oscar Messano, the president of CCTLAT, who is the core organizer of the school, please start speaking. Mr. Prosecutor of Rio, Carlos Lopes, Director Paulo Siqueira from FGV, Mr. Director of the Regional Office for Latin America, Pablo Ramos, and also the senior researcher. And ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to me to be part of this, the ninth School of South School on Internet Governance, especially in this incredible town that is Rio de Janeiro. We have many poets and many authors who have sang about the city. It's a wonderful city full of enchantments. And I'd like to thank FGV because to host events in this beautiful school, it overcomes all our expectations. I'd also would like to thank those who sponsor us. For instance, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Icon Internet Society, Microsoft, OMG, Tecnomedia, Telefonica. All these sponsors, they are supporting us, and we thank them for their efforts. And it's important as well to highlight this great work that they have been doing, and also those who are not here. And I think that a few of you only know what is working in such an event. So I would like to thank for all this organization work. So data about this meeting. This is a school that happens once a year in a country in Latin America, and we count in this meeting with 175 people who have received a scholarship to be here. And our evaluation task is very hard in order to select those who will receive our grant, and we increase the number of scholarships every year, but we are not able to grant new scholarships every year, and we apologize for that. And there's a gender matter that is very interesting because we have 185 scholarships, and 59% are women and 41% are men. So congratulations to the women who are participating. We expect that our students that are sponsored, that they can work with these themes about the internet and also about the complexity of the system. We think that you are the future and you're going to take important decisions, make important decisions concerning technologies and their interactions with society. And we hope that we are guiding people well. So we request you to ask questions, debate. This is your tasks here in the school. Internet has been using this politics of multi-stakeholders, so we have to listen to the governments, to social society, the businessmen, and also the academia. So in this school, we have all these actors here. So take the advantage of this school to listen. And the world is changing a lot, and technology is the new tool, and we have to assimilate all this change. We have as the goal a stable and open internet. While I was preparing this course, I was thinking in a way of provoking you to give you a homework for you to debate, to assess from the material that you're receiving here. You have to debate, and we're going to speak about job and job opportunities, and those who are following up the advances of computations and artificial intelligence. We know that technology is working together, and it's growing at fast speed as everything that's happening in internet ecosystem. And in 30 years, we won't have problems to have jobs. On the contrary, we won't have the need to work. So this new reality will change our economy radically, and we will have a new society. And what's interesting and what concerns me is that I don't see many thinking minds thinking about this immediate way of life. This won't be my problem because I won't be working with that, but I believe this is your problem. And I trust in your minds, the youngsters who are studying the internet, for you to find the solution that we will have for this problem that we will have in the near future. So this is your homework. Just think about that. So I congratulate you all. And I thank you all, and I hope that we are able to fulfill your expectations, and I hope that you gather a lot of knowledge here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Oscar. I'd like also to highlight that we will have three official languages: Portuguese, Spanish, and English. So if you need, you can have this headsets to listen in your own language, and also to participate you can use the easiest language for you, and you're able to speak either in English, in Portuguese, or Spanish. So I'd like to request Bruno Ramo, who is the director of the International Communication School, to introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be with you all. Before further ado, how many of you speak Spanish as a mother tongue? Portuguese? English. So I'm going to. I'm not sure if I speak Portuguese or Spanish. Well, I'll be speaking Spanish because my Spanish is easier for people to understand. Those who speak Portuguese. So it's an honor to be here with you today. It's the third time I'm here with the school. I'd like to thank for the invitation to Oscar, Adriana. She's also here. It's a pleasure to work with you. Olga couldn't attend, but all of them are in the core of this school. Thank you all for inviting me. I'd also like to thank FGV, the Getúlio Vargas Foundation, for inviting me. It's great to be here today. This is the last Oscar Niemeyer work, and for me it's perfect to be here in Rio as well. I'd like to thank the city of Rio de Janeiro and the state of Rio de Janeiro as well for hosting this school, the Brazilian government. It is very important for Brazilian administration to get involved in the activities. Not really sure if you know about the International Telecommunication Union, the OIT. Good, very good. The International Telecom Union is the oldest UN agency. We date back from 1865. It sounds a bit old. It looks like an old lady. Sounds like an old lady. But the whole world is changing, and so is the union. And the first message I'd like to communicate you is that more and more we we are open to new times. And in this multi-stakeholder scenario, this is one of the discussion spaces, not the only one, but it's one of the discussion spaces. The topic of my opening talk is knowledge. Through knowledge, you change the world. And you guys, you're young. The world is in your hands. Knowing part of something is not knowledge, it's a form of manipulation. If you guys have the whole knowledge, knowledge is the full knowledge, you can choose what you have to do or your direction. And on the internet, which sometimes sounds like a paradox because it is a living, open entity. We sometimes have views, but for me it's quite clear that you don't really know everything. So first off, knowledge. You're here at this school exactly to bring up and discuss and especially listen to things and understand them. And then, so you can have your opinion on a certain topic. We sometimes see internet, we don't have a complete view of the internet at times. I don't like to be superficial, but let's talk about users, internet users. All of us are internet users. We use it every day, as Oscar said. Today's internet is the base for economic activities. All of us, I think here in Rio especially, because people are in the street and they use internet for work. It is very important to think how we use internet. That's where the great discussions are on access. Not physical access, though, but we have to discuss accessibility, money to access internet. That's a great discussion. Another point is freedom, privacy. All of the topics we're discussing now. For example, do you guys know what is the value we use in social networks nowadays, the currency we use in social medias nowadays? We don't pay for them. Our data is the currency. That's the money we use for social networks. And it's all right. It's okay. No problemo. But we have to be aware of that. And then we come back to the knowledge issue. If we do know about that, if you are aware of that, and then that's okay. But the thing is, we don't really know, and then we receive something, and how the hell did I get that if I didn't send anything? I didn't allow people to do that, but I got this ad, for example. The discussion we have nowadays and the technical discussion on big data is, I think you guys will talk about big data here. The thing is using this for business. So let's split internet in this situation. I mean, users. We should have a lot of knowledge, but which it, but on the internet there's also a governance mechanism. How do countries, and then we talk about, not only about NGOs and private matters, but also, and more importantly, on country administrations, states. Because if we discuss social sciences a little bit, we see that governments are always involved in decisions because we also have to talk about state definition, but that's the other side of the internet on governance, on money. Behind all that, we also have to be aware of what goes on. How is governance made? How do us from Latin America, who produce a lot of content, we still pay a lot for that? We pay a lot. We pay a lot of money for access because we don't have routers within our content. I was just talking to a great friend of mine from Mexico, and in Mexico they always try and search for content in America. But this type of discussion on mechanisms, for example, how we can involve everyone in this discussion, not only the states, not only governments, not only big corporations, big private corporations, which are supported by states as well, by governments as well. I, from the International Telecom Union, we don't know, we don't have this answer. The only situation we can provide to you is knowledge, is information. So I'd like to invite you to get to know us more deeply. We have a huge database, a huge knowledge database. The UN Agency for Ethics is open, and down here in the Americas, we have 4 offices: a regional one in Rio, in Brazil, another one in Santiago de Chile, one in Central America, in Honduras, and another one in Caribbean, in Barbados. And I personally, as a director, I want to listen to you. You have to leverage this week to obtain knowledge. to get different points of view from a single person. To finish off, regarding this, I really appreciate that we have a majority of women in this audience. We have an annual event called the Girls' Day at Tix, and it's always the fourth day of the fourth month on the fourth week. So it is always on a Wednesday in April. This month it would be on April 27th. Our goal is exactly what we have here, that women get involved in discussions, and not only men. So I'd like to uh, thank you all for being here, and I'm available for your questions. Thank you very much. Obrigado. Thank you for talking about the importance of knowledge. And uh, before passing on to Aldo, I'd like you to I'd like a round of applause for those who organized the event. Thank you. I'd like Claudio Lopes to take the floor. Good morning. I usually thank boys and girls, but here I'm gonna thank girls and boys. I'd like to start off by congratulating all the members of the table. A special appreciation to Adrian and Oge, who couldn't be here today. They invited me to be here. Ana Beatriz, wife, lawyer, member of the school. I'd like to especially thank Rodrigo from our Getúlio Vargas Foundation. And it is an honor, it's a great honor to take part in this opening ceremony of the SSIG. And I'd also like to congratulate Getúlio Vargas Foundation for embracing and coordinating this event down here in Rio de Janeiro. The Getúlio Vargas Foundation is certainly one of the most respected institutions in our country, and this respectability is quite clear due to its name that it conquered as an institution and respect it conquered worldwide. I'm personally glad because one of my kids, is taking law here at FGV, and for me, I'm I'm really proud of that. I'm pretty sure that he's going to be, except, even considering all the natural academic difficulties, I'm sure he's going to have a great future. I'm going to be brief because maybe, unlike all others, I'm the least authorized person to discuss the matters that you'll be talking about over the next few days. I'm a member of the Public Prosecution Office, and we don't belong to the government. We belong to the state. In a country like Brazil, it is an honor, and I'm really proud to take part of this institution. I'm part of the Rio de Janeiro State Public Prosecution Office for 30 years, which is a whole life. And I think all of you have been following how important it is for the PPO to take actions in Brazil, especially considering our constitutional profile, not only in the criminal area, where we are mostly known for, but in a number of areas, protecting the elderly, children and teenagers, this environment, collective consumer discussions, protection of public estate, including others. And this forum is extremely important in a more and more globalized world. All the experiences you guys are going to have here throughout these days, discussions connected to the internet area. Of course, the internet has all of those technological concerns, using it as a tool, but more and more, and especially in Brazil, as highlighted, where nearly 100% of the population uses the internet, either for leisure, or knowledge, studies. There are many relevant questions that should be faced. Down here in Brazil, for example, the social networks issue. We see how important this new mechanism is when we see that even political matters are have a different way of addressing. People are perplexed when we see that there's a new way of conducting politics because there isn't a great control on population, on society, on what the social networks discuss, and there's a traditional politics is goes behind more and more.
And when we face problems in our area related to cybernetic crimes such as pedophilia and cyberbullying and a series of matters that today the the bad use of internet, which is a fantastic tool, but this kind of issues they influence and they have this great effect on all of us in the society. And what we expect is that in these days we could debate all these very important issues, and more we are able to advance, and more we can use internet in a good way, profiting from everything that it can provide. So I thank you very much to be part of this event, and I congratulate the South School and also the Getúlio Vargas Foundation to be holding this great event. Thank you very much. I'd like to congratulate this table because we are on time and we can start now with the first session with the introduction on internet governance. And you're always welcome to participate in our South School here.
Queria pedir ao Dr. Benedicto Fonseca Filho de...
I'd like to ask Dr. Benedito Fonseca Filho to come to the table, and also Olga Cavalli, who will participate virtually. She will participate through Skype. and we are going to start in 1 minute.
Então, bem-vindos de novo.
So welcome back. And before starting this table, I'd like to thank Benedito Fonseca Filho from the Brazilian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much, Benedito. And let's start this first table, this introduction table, to define the scenario of internet governance. And so in order to define this scenario and have this overview, it's important to show you the history of internet and how this history has an impact on internet governance. So this text is in English and the audio is in Portuguese. So let's start by defining the 5 periods of time that I believe are very important in the history of internet. And this early period, it's a period of scientific development of internet, and then we have this commercialization that will promote and stimulate this convergence of media, services, people, things on the internet until we reach these modern times of internet governance. So let's start with the prehistory of internet. It all starts with the launch of Sputnik 1 satellite. And why is this very important? Because it was a great shock, the shock of Sputnik, because the American government understood that they could send dogs like a dog, but also could send weapons like nuclear weapons. So they started with creating NASA and ARPA, which were 2 agencies who promoted research to create this network in case to defense network in case of nuclear attack. So Leonard Kleinrock has developed this packet switching network, and it's not based in predefined circuits. It's very resilient because it's based on fragmentations in forms of data and data packets, and by sending packages that can be gathered again when they reach their destination. So the information is sent in chunks and in small chunks of data, and they are sent separately, and they are later on they are gathered and reassembled. So later on, Paul Barron, which worked in another corporation, he had another idea for the network development. And he had this consideration that a centralized network was much more vulnerable than a non-centralized network, a distributed network. So by using this distributed configuration has developed the resilience of internet. And 2 years later, Donald Davis was the first to define these data sets as data packages. And he has united all these ideas and organized all these ideas ARPA has developed its first network, which was called ARPANET, and it starts stimulating this pre-internet, which was ARPANET. So the researchers who worked in these projects started communicating among themselves. So Steve Crocker, that our friends from ICA, they know him very well. He was the first to elaborate a request for comments and a document that could be shared with other peers in order to exchange ideas among researchers and also to define this new technology in a open way, participative way. And was very important, the RFCs, because in the beginning it was only a way of sharing ideas, but later on it was a technical standard. So it defines technical definitions of on how to produce technology and also share in an open way. This is the true base of technical governance on the internet. So we reach the second period now, the scientific period. So thanks to these communications among researchers, this scientist community starts developing the internet. And here you see Louis Pouzin, who invented the datagram. It's a very important tool because it allows us to consolidate all the information from the data packages and also include information so that package could be routed and then later on assembled together. So also Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn, they have created the technical constitution of internet, this TCP/IP protocol. This was the technical constitution of the internet. Was a principle of norms that could it was a set of technical rules which defined the base of internet, creating this network of networks that was structured in layers. It's a layer structure. And there are several layers, and each layer is taking care of each function. It's like a separation of powers in the constitutional law that Montesquieu has developed this idea in 1768. So this analogy of TCP/IP and the Constitution is very evident. So what is the result of this technical construction? To define fundamental values which will define the evolution of internet, to be opened, to be distributed, and also to have data exchange. And also the goal is that the user could define how to use the internet. It's not the operator which will define the use of the internet. And the effect of that is the freedom of expression, of receiving and sharing information and idea without boundaries. Even if the authors of TCP/IP, maybe they didn't know that this would happen, but what happened was the concentration of information in this technology. And the evolution went on with new applications. New complex tools were defined. In 1984, Jonathan Postel was one of the creators of DNS, domain name system, that allows the connections in IP addresses, and each machine is connected to names that are easy to search and very easy to understand. So this number that is impossible to remember, you can connect that to a name that is easy to remember. And in 1986, the IETF was created, and it's an open organization for any researcher who is interested in definitions of RFCs and also in the definitions of internet architecture. The IANA, the Internet Assigned Names Authority, was also created in 1989, and in this beginning uh, it was a department of John Postel Information Science Institute. He was managing IANA, and as we are going to see in this afternoon, IANA will become an element that is key for this debate. And ISOC was created. We have several people from ISOC here. It's a key element of internet governance. So a community of researchers in 1992, after IETF created standards, but they didn't have this umbrella organization that could organize this process. So the ISOC was created in order to boost knowledge and spread knowledge across the world. Another element that was key and that will close this development period is the development of World Wide Web by Tim Berners-Lee. And this new application was fundamental because the internet page were much more organized after www. And it has defined this unique language to organize the pages, and it allows a much easier search and connection. And it's also a way to share and find information in a very structured way on the internet. And we have also the third period of internet trade.
An extremely role of the internet is developed by by ITU. When we talk about how the internet was born, we immediately think to domain names, to electronic commerce, but without such agreement dating back from 1980s, the explosion of infrastructure networks, the explosion of infrastructure, it wouldn't be possible. So a critical element of the 1980s commerce is the 1988 ITU trade treaty. Because of the commercialization infrastructure and an easier web advancement, that's the explosion of electronic trade, of internet use, of e-commerce. And along with the opportunities, there are many challenges. And the emergence of cyber cyber squatting, and abusive domain register, and domains that correspond to a trademark, as if I registered fgv.br, and then I would ask money to sell this domain. So one solution for this type of behavior, abusive behavior, is the ICANN. It is not only a technical coordination institution for the domain system. One of the principles, one of the reasons why they were simulated by the Clinton administration is to create a system, self-regulation system, to act international level to settle conflicts of abusive trademark register. The ICANN should also be highlighted because they have a critical role in the internet in the following years. And we'll be talking about this this afternoon on the ICANN panel. Moving on, and so talking about the ITU, we have the Minneapolis commitment. ICANN is created in America, it's set up in America, but as a Californian law entity. For other governments in the world, that are represented in ITU, they have a commitment with the United States. ICANN is going to be in the United States, and the government recognize the importance of the private sector while fostering uh, internet creation. We also have to set up a conference to debate how the internet should be managed. And this is the convergence period. The, the convergence between national and international management of internet. This was made in Geneva in 2003. For the first time, governments, civil society, and the private sector meet up to discuss the future of the internet governance. Back then, it wasn't governance. It wasn't internet governance. One of the byproducts of the first world meeting, the Geneva Declaration, talks about international management. Specifically, it explains that they don't use the multi-sectorial term. It's transparent, democratic. It requires the involvement of governments, civil society, private sector. And in 2005, we have the Tunis Consensus. All participants have a consensus which is signed by government representatives, and it defines internet governance as development and implementation by government and civil society and private sectors according to their respective roles on principles, rules, on decision-making processes to define the evolution of the internet and its use. Along with this role, there's a real consensus and real commitment to an extreme model. The commitment of all participants is to consider a participation-based governance from all stakeholders on the internet governance legitimacy. The second product of the second stage of the World Summit is the creation of IGF. We're talking about the UN Internet governance. All the signatory members expressly request the UN to set up a new conference to debate and promote public policies on the internet scope. It was set up for the first time back in 2006. But we're going to be debating this over the next sections along with Marcos Kuma, and who was the executive director of this forum. 11 years later, we still foster a multi-sectorial debate on internet governance. Another model that's going to change this evolution is the diffusion of smartphones. It changes dramatically the way the relationship between people and internet. The internet is not only something we can access from home or from work, but we can access it anytime. It is intimately connected to the life of any user. Even it gets to another element is the number of users that is lower than the number of connected objects. So the Internet of Things is also associated to this. In 2009, the number of connected objects it outnumbers connected people. So it still determines an explosion of connected objects. And any object that is produced over the next few years, that is produced now, is connected to the internet. And as Bruno Ramos said in his introduction speech, the critical element of the evolution over the last few years is that personal data is a real money we use, a real currency we use on the internet. The World Economic Forum back in 2011 is clear. Personal data is the new class of economic asset that is going to guide the whole 21st century economy. This is convergence. First off, convergence of media and services into the internet. All people are stimulated to converge into the internet, but also the convergence of all things that are connected to the internet. So we now get to the last step of the evolution, which starts with Snowden revelations back in 2013, whereby the whole world understands that information technology is a new opportunity, but also pose, uh, poses additional challenges such as how to regulate them. And Brazil promotes a multi-stakeholder internet governance debate on internet governance in 2014 with the Net Mundial Conference, and also with the approval of the Bill of Rights, of the Internet Bill of Rights. It was a participative, open process with the cooperation of an FGV institution, the Ministry of Justice, and the Internet Committee to come up with a bill, an open line participative bill that was passed by the Congress in the same day as the Net Mundial. Another narrative that was promoted in 2014, which was the first year of the World Internet Conference, promoted by China, which brings a new sovereignty doctrine. All states have the right to develop and rule their internet. So we are developing also a digital arms race. States start to not only develop software and surveillance systems, but also offensive software. At times, attacks are sponsored by states, like in 2014, North Korea, that sponsors actions to avoid the publication of a film. In 2017, we finally arrived to a month back. There's a very curious phenomenon, the call for a new treaty, an international agreement, a digital Geneva convention, where the main promoter of such call is not the UN, but rather the president of one of the main players of private sector in the internet, Brad Smith, president of Microsoft. He clearly invites world governments to have a new digital Geneva convention involving citizens and to allow the private sector to develop the task which is to protect individuals in a neutral, more efficient way, both in war and peaceful times. Well, of course, this is a simplification. It's to be continued. And clearly, we hope that this school continues, that all this information is in the second chapter of my book. Thank you for your attention. Now I'd like to know if they are connected with us, or we can. So it is an honor to have Benedicto Fonseca with us here today. Good morning, Benedicto. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the organizers for being here today. My name is Benedito Fonseca Filho. I am an ambassador and I'm the director of the scientific and technological themes of the Brazilian embassy. I'd like to talk to you about what we have done in this area from this topic perspective as a diplomatic agenda topic. So I'm going to start from a topic that Luca talked about, which is the Information Society Summit, which was made in two steps back in 2003 in Geneva and 2005 in Tunis, from where consensus documents arose. I would like to talk about international community, but it was uh, negotiated in a government format and consensus on how information technology should be used and what are the necessary interventions and developments that should experiment so they can leverage their potential and be used as development instruments. So the concepts that arose from such summit, what we call WISIS in the English acronym, they're a kind of birth certificate of this global diplomatic agenda. Of course, it reflects, which was very well said by Luca throughout the years, how this topic was developed. So I'd say that from 2005 onwards, we have a clear diplomatic agenda on a global scale. And right from the start, the view that the summit followed is that the TICs but they're predominantly recognized. They predominantly recognize the internet has a paramount role. It has a multi-phase aspect. They have economic aspects, cultural aspects, but also caring about infrastructure development. It is very common that in the UN, the documents are very complex, but they also focus greatly on the role that our technologies should and have to develop. So specifically on internet governance, the document that arose from the second step of the summit, which was the Tunis agenda, has a very long excerpt on the internet. And it contains two principles that you always highlight as two consensuses or principles that help organize a little bit of our participation in the number of forums and processes on internet governance.
And the first one is the multi-stakeholder process principle. And this principle states that internet governance, I think that the Skype is coming in. If you want to interrupt my presentation. Okay, let's move on. So this is the principle that states that internet governance is not a topic about which the government could gather and discuss isolatedly, differently from other sectors due to the political issues, but it also requires the participation of civil society as a whole, and also international bodies. And the second principle is that the participation of these sectors should be guided by the principle that each sector has a role and a responsibility that is not exerted in the same way. So we have the principle of creating roles and responsibilities that are different from one another depending on this group, if it's the civil society or government and so on. And we discuss a series of themes that is structure, safety, security, and also the language. And it's not difficult to imagine that there's not only there's not a single way, a uniform way to address all these topics. And I can give you an example, and Luca has mentioned ICA. ICA manages the critical resource from the internet, what makes internet work, the names, the numbers, the engineering resources, all the technical part. And since the beginning, the way that we managed that, it was natural that the technical society and the non-government parts of society, they are leading this process. And this is accepted by the governments across the world in a peaceful way. And they acknowledge that this is an area in which the governments shouldn't lead. And this opposed to this discussion involving the security in the internet or fighting crime on the internet, or also matters involving taxes. So in these topics, you couldn't imagine an environment in which everyone is discussing and sharing their opinions. So in these topics, the government should lead. And the Brazilian government, they consider that the two principles can help us serve in this government governance internet system. Because sometimes it seems that ICA and AIT, they are opposing to each other, but the view that comes from this summit is much more complex and it involves many aspects. So today, in this environment, we have made many efforts to account and measure, and we came to the conclusion that the international bodies that treat about internet governance, they also include regional and bilateral bodies, and they can add to hundreds or thousands tools or levels that treat about internet governance. So it's a very complex system, but from our standpoint, these two principles allow us to navigate from this around this system. So we also established two processes. One was IGF, the Internet Governance Forum, that was established as a space for debate and also for idea exchange, and also to create consensus to reflect on internet matters. But IGF was imagined and developed not to be a deliberative forum. We don't make decisions and we don't reach recommendations, strong recommendations. IGF does not have this binding nature. It's a very important effort that Brazil and Brazilian government has supported consistently since its beginning. Not only the government, but our management commission on internet has supported IGF. We had two meetings in Brazil in 2007 in Rio and in 2015 in João Pessoa, the annual meetings of IGF, to show clearly the commitment that we have with IGF. And also the summit has created the second process that we call it enhanced cooperation. So concerning this second process, the difference from IGF that has been developed for many years. So this other process is only in the second edition, and it has been perfecting itself after every meeting. And we have strengthened its ability to reflect and influence on other discussions outside its context. but this enhanced perfection is different because we have different consensus on what is this perfecting enhancements. We have common topics. They all converge around these elements. So it points to a tool or a process in which all governments on equal levels should decide about public policy matters that are related to the internet, but not about the topics of the daily life. So we have this common formulation, but the elements that constitute what, for instance, what do you mean by equal participations of governments, and what are the relevant matters that should be treated by the governments? So we have been trying to understand all these issues, and we have been trying to detail all of them, and also we have to point to this course of action in order to develop this perfection. In 2015, when the summit of information society has completed 2 years, we had this review process, the ISO plus 10, and we have confirmed the validity of these two processes. So IGF has requested that the summit goes on and develops, and also we have this enhanced cooperation process that it could prevail. And also we have this difference of opinion, and we have these different feelings because across these 10 years many different things have happened, but at the same time we have this feeling that we should perfect this. So we have this work group that is going on in order to advance in this topic, and I'm the president of this group, and it's linked to the Science and Technology Commission, and we should gather twice, once this year and another time next year, and we are trying to reach consensus. And I would like also to convey that internet governance today and their topics, they are very much mixed with technology and communication role. But we also concentrate and gather around internet because it's the most visible topic. And there's this topic that comes from the beginning of internet, the way it works. It's a global resource, but it does not respect boundaries. So we have this very interesting issue, very complex, very challenging, that is about jurisdiction. How we should solve conflicts that involve more than one jurisdiction on the internet context. So we are talking about domain names, we are talking about information flows, also economic transactions. So today we are discussing, and this is a very interesting discussion about this jurisdiction aspects. And another aspect is about data protection. How on the digital environment that is opened, and we want it to remain open and unified. And as Luca mentioned, today we are in this threshold of this new era that will start with Internet of Things. And the world that we know today, in 5-10 years, we'll have this very different configuration due to Internet of Things. So what are the challenges to protect data and to guarantee that we develop Internet of Things protecting data, privacy, and also safety and security. So these topics that we are discussing. And today we have also been discussing here in Brazil. We have this digital strategy. We have discussed that at G20 and OCDE, and we have this understanding that the economy, it's becoming this commonplace to say that we don't have this clear separation between economy and digital economy, and this has impacted in productive process, on our daily lives, on the way that we communicate. So all this discussion and all these aspects are interacting: security, data protections, and also economic transactions. So this is a big topic that we are discussing, and it's related to the internet and also to internet governance, because it's very important that all this world that is being shaped, it's based in certain principles that enable this organic way of functioning. So this is a delicate balance, because we have to acknowledge that internet needs freedom. It's an innovation environment, so we shouldn't have entrance barriers that are very high. But we also have to guarantee security, safety, and so on. So this is a very interesting discussion that is going on. And I will end my presentation by saying that the World Summit was, in our view, it was the birth certificate for this global debate. And in this dynamic environment, uh, those consensus that we were able to reach 12 years ago, somehow they are still valid. As much as we often listen that each one of this process was imagined like IGF of this enhancement process, but how these two processes today they are justified. You have the need to have this global space for discussion, reflection about topics that are related to the internet, but we also need today to think about the tools and processes that the international community, either it's represented by government or even by represented by government and formed by the full participation of other sectors, or in some aspects the international community is participating in an equal way, how this process should develop to guarantee that the internet remains a tool. It's a support for development, for perfecting the economy, the social aspects, and people in general. So how this could happen. So I will end my presentation here, and I'm available for your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to know if the connection with Olga is available. If we don't have connection with her, we can start.
Olá, Olga.
Hello, Olga. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Escuchamos, mas no te vemos. Bom, se não pode falar, Olga, a gente
Well, you can go ahead and speak. We can hear you loud and clear. So it is a pleasure to be here with you. It's great to take part of this conference. I think it's going to be easy in this case to deliver this presentation. As Minister Benedicto said, it's a very topic to be discussed. I'd like to start off by thanking Luca because he received this project in the Getúlio Vargas Foundation. In fact, he offered his house to host this project. Thank you for your patience, dedication. So, Luca, thank you, Gianna. All of you FGV folks. It is very important for us to develop the discussion in Brazil. She's now acknowledging all the sponsors and organizers of the project of the conference. She also thanks all the institutional support and sponsors. She is now listing all the sponsors and institutions that offered international support. She's now thanking the Getúlio Vargas Foundation, Google Icon, which is an institute, the ISON, IPCF, Iclaquinakin, Microsoft, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Science and Technology, the Ministry of Culture, VEGA, .rg, Ceifa, Tecnomedia, Telefônica. And finally, I'd like to thank all of the 180 participants of the countries. We got this 50-50 men and women division. Thank you for your effort. And especially the economic effort that you've made. So don't forget to benefit from this. benefit from the specialists, from the experts on the panels and social activities we'll be developing. And when the week is over, I hope you have more questions and more doubts on this topic than when you arrived here. Could you please now get a presentation on the screen? It's very quick and very simple. I'd like to explain. I'm not going to take too long because Benedito had a great explanation on this topic. I think my presentation, as a matter of fact, complements what everyone said here this morning. So I can't see the screen, but would you please let me know? All right, can you see? Well, I'm going to bring you some Latin American perspectives on the topic. That started in this World Summit that drafted a number of documents to base the work since 2003 from a work group that was formed in 2003. Next, please. There you have the Social Summit, the World Social Summit on Information, the WSIS, where internet governance is fully discussed, and they created a space of exchange of information on this topic that wasn't binding, but it was just a space, a discussion space. It's called Internet Governance Forum. Brazil hosted this forum that took place back in 2007. And in Tunisia, back in they decided to create a Latin American space called Regional Plan for Information Circulation. Why do I want to talk about the importance of this space? Because other regions don't have it. Latin America has an area to discuss internet governance. It's the previous slide. Would you please? Yeah, that's this one. Yeah. Previous one, please. Yeah. Well. As I said, there's a space called ILAC. It started as ILAC back in 2015, 2005, and it changed its name. It changed the name throughout time. Whenever there's a ministry meeting, it changes name. The last one was in Mexico. A year and a half ago, and in this ministerial meeting, because there are multi-stakeholders, and something that was an action plan is now an agenda for America and the Caribbean. This presentation is going to be available for you later, but it is a non-binding action plan for the development of guidelines that have to do with internet governance, and also an action plan which is now a digital agenda for Latin America and Caribbean. One of them is the internet governance workforce that is now being chaired by Brazil. Why is it important? Because it brings us a space base to debate in a regional level the whole processes that Luke and Benedict spoke about, that has global relevance. But the important thing is to find regional spaces where we can understand our problems and bring it to international scope later. we wish to have the elect meetings along with other all departments. This happened in Mexico. It was a great experience. I hope we can have it again next, please. Along with this elect process, first for the civil society initiative, we created a governance forum. It is a preparatory meeting, in fact. It's called. It's a preparatory meeting for Internet Governance Forum. It was born as an initiative of the civil society, of the technical community, and then it entailed other multi-stakeholders. Next meeting is going to be held in Panama. In Mexico, it was held along with the ministerial meeting. What I said here is that ELAC, in the ELAC Secretariat belongs to CEPAL. It is a participative committee where private sector, civil society, and government also take part. From this regional organ, this regional body, we started having national initiatives. Next, please, this one. Next slide. Here there are national initiatives. I listed the initiatives over here. This is available on the institution website. Next slide, please. Here is a list of national initiatives. It has different names. Some of them are Internet Governance forums, others are dialogues. I mean, they're different. These are also participating spaces. I'd like to highlight this multi-participation aspect. Next one, please. These are the logos. In Costa Rica, in fact, was a dialogue for Central America that was made simultaneously with the 2015 governance in Costa Rica and Caribbean. We have to highlight that there was a prior internet forum on this topic, initiated by themselves, and some other forums which are very new, like the one from Argentina, for example. I'd like to talk a bit about the focus on the governance school. You guys know that last year the focus was on security. Next, please. Next, please. So the goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, were made available in 2015.
And this has to do with technology and also with internet technology, which is across many different activities. And I'd like to highlight some of the goals. These are goals for 2020. It's the near future. And I'd like to talk about this so that we are able to debate that across this week. Next slide. We have 17 goals. So if you surf on our webpage, you see that there are different goals. So if you're interested in this topic, you can enter and you can access our website, and it's available in several different languages. Next one, please. I have chosen 5 goals, and they are all related to the internet, but they are very important as well. We have we should have an open and accessible internet, open and accessible for all. As Benedicto said, this is related to connectivity, artificial intelligence. Previous slide, please. So this is a very important matter, number 17, that is collaborative work in order to reach the goals. I believe that in this internet world, which we know today, this is instrumental. And also, goal number 10, reducing inequality. We have a lot of different ideologies and cultures across the world, and this is a great challenge for the government to regulate. We have very unequal countries here in Latin America, and we have to find ways for the internet to help us in this matter. And also goal number 11, sustainable cities and communities. And number 17 is how we work together in order to reach these goals. And we can't do all this by our own. Not only the government, not only the social society, not only the private business. This is all collaborative work, and this is very important to have this model of multi-stakeholders. So in order to end my presentation, I'm going to show you some figures, and I'd like you to think about this matter. Here you can see this chart, and there's a very interesting study about connected households in Latin America. And we are able to show the quantities of states on the internet in Latin America. I'm not sure if you're able to see the numbers because it's small printed, but the blue bars are concerning OECD, and the red bar is Latin America. 91% of the blue is connected and 41% is red in Latin America. This is average. There are zones and areas that are more connected than others, of course, like São Paulo and City of Mexico, but these are the goals and the averages. So this is a general idea. And we'll also have this presentation about community networks and also infrastructures in communities. And we have to solve this problem with different involved parts of society. So here you're able to see this map. So here we are showing how the broadband is distributed. You see here that some few countries have more than 20%, like Uruguay, Argentina. And you're able to see that on this map. Argentina is the fourth on the ranking, and the green ones are not very well, but we are speaking about 26% of broadband. Maybe it's arguable But what we know is that we have a long road ahead of us, and these challenges of connectivity are very important. And in the future, I believe will be very different. I'm almost finishing. Next slide, please. Another interesting topic: how we are able to improve in a collaborative way the internet exchange points where the traffic is exchanged. So this is a map from where you're able to find these internet exchange points. So in an international and collaborative way, these are places where uh, co- content providers are deployed, and this is very important for Brazil and Argentina. We see there are many traffic points in Argentina and Brazil. And we have very interesting bodies concerning this subject in Brazil. So Latin America is not so bad, but there's a great deal of inequality in Latin America. And this is a very important discussion. The collaborative uh, internet exchange. So next slide, please. So this is also collaborative work of warning points. Here you're able to see this map. In 1 hour, 3,271 viruses, more than 15 companies were compromised due to security reasons, and 161 files were ruined by attacks. So this is a very important topic. Also, it impacts privacy, industry, government, and we have to reflect on security. So this map shows you these alert points of cyber attacks that are grouped around some regions. Here you're able to see Brazil map, and if you zoom in on this map, you're able to see the attack points. So this is an example of collaborative work in order to reach the sustainable growing goals. So let's go to the last slide, please. So we have other challenges ahead of us. So we are going to think about them in this week. So this is the last slide. I have this delay here, but I have seen now that this is the last one very well. So this internet access, privacy, and security, so freedom of speech. We are going to speak about this theme at OEA. We have problems to share local contents, and we will also discuss Internet of Things that both Benedict and Luca have mentioned, and what's going to happen, where we are in this development of standards. We are participating of this development of standards in Internet of Things, and how is the structure working with IPv4 and 6 and DNS exchange? What is going to happen with the cryptocurrency blockchain, and what is the participation of ICANN, IETF, IGF? It's very important that you are actually involved, and so that we are very much involved in all this matter. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry for this delay, and I would love to be here with you. Thank you very much, Olga. Let's go now for this short break and coffee break. And if you have any questions, you can also speak, please. Hello, I'm Luis Miguel Martinez, and I have this question for Luca. And this question has to do with the history and of internet governance and also with the Internet of Things. How do you predict the route that we should take? We should define the rules, and or should we first build this path and later on only rule and think about the rules and start this governance cycle? Thank you very much. Any other questions? So I'm going to answer now. You have another questions? Eu sou Luciano Ramalho. I'm Luciano Ramalho, and this was a very interesting presentation. Internet was born with this decentralized feature, and what happens today is that the capitalism dynamics it centralizes and it knows the advantages of this architecture. So I'd like to know if you consider if there's lack of regulation, in fact. Because we talk about the participation of the private sector, and I represent a company here, but do you think we miss some regulations in order to crack down this to happen? So I'm not able to predict the future, but I can talk about what's going on now. The Internet of Things is not something that is going to happen, it's something that is happening right now. We have large investments from the the private sector to build Internet of Things, and fortunately, the Brazilian government, for instance, is considering this phenomena, and so we are promoting this debate in order to understand what is going to happen and in order to define a strategy in an integrated way. So we are able to understand what are the most efficient ways of addressing these challenges. I don't know if we should have a law about Internet of Things, if this would be a solution. But what is instrumental is to have this vision of how it should be done. For instance, which infrastructure is necessary, which legal framework we have, and which laws we have still to produce because Internet of Things has not been totally deployed. But my answer is Internet of Things is already going on, and like Internet, it didn't wait for the law to happen. So what it is necessary is to understand how it's happening and try to prevent negative effects. So in this case, I will connect to the second questions because there's this risk of centralization that we are observing right now in any level, any dimension of in the internet. There's this centralization not only concerning actors, the main actors of internet, which are playing this role not only as private actors but also as regulators of the internet, not only because of the user agreements that will regulate billions of people, but also the concept that I usually use, that is the concept of structured power. It was developed by Susan Strange, who is a political scientist, and she developed that in 1988. And she has defined this power as a complement for the economic power. The structure power is the power to define the structures that society will use so that individuals are able to press the states and the companies could cooperate entered in the market, for instance, for the companies. So this element that has not been studied so much is this concept of structured power that should be applied to great business and main actors in the business to define how internet should work and also how internet of things should work in the next years.
Would you like to add anything? No? Do you have additional questions? Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Patricia Ria de Chile. From Chile, I have a question for both of you. Don't you guys think that the focus should be the fundamental rights of individuals over technology more than how to generate infrastructure? Because somehow in this new context, a new social context, this new digital economy, what really matters is people's rights. That's what we see as right to information, security, of this information, freedom of speech, privacy, and the right of data privacy. It's going to affect our labor rights, health rights. I've seen, but I haven't heard this type of talk regarding a more important focus of fundamental rights, how governments are working on that to protect that more. There's women participation, the participation of vulnerable groups, like this internet topic faced by children, that kind of thing. Thank you for your question. Yes, in fact, the documents. My reference is always the combat documents, the Information Society. They said that everything you do, you should look for the person in the center. It's people-centered. So for us, for governments, for the Brazilian government in particular, it is a very important topic. We lead along with Germany in the human rights concept, a movement that generated the right to privacy in the digital era. It is quite clearly talked about in the international community. We know the root cause of the of reports on this fact has really contributed for the visibility of the topic. However, this coincided with our view that human rights are fundamental. When we had the Net Mundial that Nuka mentioned, it had two objectives, two goals. Exactly in this espionage context, to make sure that the future development of internet, it would be principle based, and also in some consensus on necessary interventions. And principle-wise, it resulted that as a consensus from everyone who was there, human rights have to be an element that bases everything you do in terms of governance. So, however, we haven't specifically spoken about this. It is fundamental for us. And all the children protection, the gender matter, these are discussions that, but the thing is the topic is so wide that we can discuss this. We can discuss these parts a lot. For example, at UNESCO and other organizations, other global organizations, regional organizations, bilateral organizations to work on these systems. And the Brazilian government specifically, along with others, and I believe that in this part, this region is very, very well aligned in terms of the defense of many topics. That we have made efforts to keep this as an international discussion axis. Thank you. I agree with him. I'd like to highlight that there's this whole impact of internet governments on human rights. I think we're going to now go for our first coffee break, and we're going to have a session on sustainable internet governance within 20 minutes.
Transmissão
Tá.
a Olga.
Não,
Claro, tem tudo. Tem toda a biblioteca do PIB.
eu diria assim, de uma maneira sintomática, que a natureza do hospital é totalmente diferente. Mas legal a gente ter cuidado de fazer, isso é volta ao mar, né? Que já ouvindo todo mundo, até a agenda foi estabelecida a partir da contribuição de todos. A gente teve cuidado ao longo de toda a reunião ser totalmente assim, participativo. E pelo menos no início eu não acompanhei essas últimas, acho que já é a segunda que eles fizeram, né, a terceira, mas lá eles começaram assim, com um viés muito centralizador, né? Então já se diferenciou bastante do espírito que a gente teve aqui, de trazer todo mundo à mesa. A gente tem acompanhado um pouco, mas na verdade também a NET Mundial e essa conferência da China, elas se assemelham no sentido que elas não estão dentro de um processo, né? Elas não estão nas Nações Unidas, foram iniciativas dos países, de chamados. É diferente, por exemplo, da conferência lá da UIT, que aí sim foi uma coisa estruturante. Agora eu diria que hoje, eu acho que a importância do tema continua, mas eu diria assim, as ênfases mudaram, né? Quer dizer, aquela ênfase de denúncia da espionagem, eu acho que era muito ligada ao governo anterior, né? O presidente Dilma, que foi uma das líderes mundiais que mais reagiram a isso. Então, eu acho que esse aspecto está menos presente hoje, mas aí você tem uma agenda que vai evoluindo. Hoje você tem a questão da economia digital, da internet das coisas, como que se relaciona com proteção de dados, segurança. Então, o tema geral, acho que sim, continua importante, mas talvez com ênfase diferente do que foi em 2014. Não sei se respondeu. Acho que é importante que a China se engaje nessa discussão, porque uma internet global única tem que ter a China, tem que ter a Índia, tem que ter a Rússia. São países que têm assim, uma posição às vezes mais matizada em relação a nós. Então, na medida que eles estejam participando, eu acho uma coisa muito positiva é que ninguém nega assim,
mas acho que talvez a gente já tocou nesse e-mail, né?
Uma coisa que é importante o papel dos setores, tem que ser só governo, mas seja um governo às vezes com perfil mais centralizador, e eles procuram ter assim, mostrar que tem essa abertura. Então, por esse lado, acho que foram interessantes as conferências da China. tem que ver como que isso vai resultar na prática, né? Que medidas... No caso do Brasil, a gente tem praticado o que a gente prega. Tá bom.
Presentación con video, virtual.
Mas enfim, é muito bom que você esteja aqui. Vamos tentar, se você trabalha aqui na universidade, vamos tentar também fazer umas parcerias, ou convidar você para uma palestra, tá bom?
Muito obrigado.
Brasileiro, que a ideia é justamente essa de ter o mesmo enfoque em todas as áreas de governo. Tem gente, como eu falei, até a partir dessa curva que chamou a atenção assim, como tema para a nossa agenda de Itamaraty. Mas acho que não tem que acontecer, né? No MCT já tem acontecido, eles têm a mídia, comunicações, mas acho que em todo o governo, até para que haja isso, para que esse nível de apoio, execução, eu creio que a tendência é porque esse assunto só vai crescer. Cada dia as pessoas se dão conta que é um tema que afeta a vida de a gente. Você tem que se organizar para poder, né, se preparar para o que está vindo aí. Então, o próprio MCT está preparando isso e está sendo um esforço de todo o governo, pensar em cada área que precisa ser feito para potencializar os benefícios que a economia digital pode trazer e envolve tudo isso que foi falado, como que a internet, como que a universidade, e aí envolve capacitação, envolve, é um aspecto essencial. Você é de qual universidade?
você acha que é melhor pular, tipo, colocar um aqui e outro aqui? Acho que ficou muito separada. Tá bonito.
Alô, 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 me ouve? Não, não tá me ouvindo?
Mas é só por conta da transmissão.
Ah, tá.
Deixa eu ver agora.
Alô, me ouve? Me ouve bem? Alô, alô, testando. Um, dois, três, testando. Hello. Alô, alô, alô.
Pode deixar. Eu vou lá dentro só pra você não ficar falando. Eu tô aí derrubado aqui
Tá
e te
bom,
peço de
tá
novo.
já.
Então vamos começar em 2 minutos, que aí é
We're going to start in 2 minutes. I'd like to invite Carlos Oliveira from the European Commission in Brasilia to take the floor, and Marcos Toscano from the Ministry of Communications to also take the floor. Carlos Oliveira, please. Cristiano is going to moderate the session.
Bom, vamos retomar aqui as nossas atividades. Só gostaria
Let's
de
rest-
dar
that restart the start of our activities. I'd like to give you some notice. We have some jacks on the chairs. If you need to plug your computer in, you can use those jacks. Please do not let your purses and laptops here in the audience during your coffee breaks. I know it's a bit boring. You have to carry on all your stuff just for a coffee, but just to avoid that your baggage disappears, we are not liable for that. Let's start. Good morning, everyone. First off, I'd like to apologize on behalf of Martião, Commissioner Martião. The ministry canceled all the meetings. Had to cancel a meeting in Europe, and the commissioner had to represent Brazil abroad. But he made a written message, and I'm basically going to read his message out loud. And of course, I'm available for your Q&A. That is within my knowledge, or to forward messages to the commissioner later on. I'm going to start reading. Good morning, everyone. I congratulate the SSIG organizers and the FGV for running one more edition of this important international event, and I thank you for your invitation. It is a relevant institution for gathering youngs and specialists on internet governance and other topics related to the digital world. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the meeting due to something came up in Minister Gilberto Kassab's agenda, and I had to represent him in another digital governance event. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to send this written message. This topic is quite broad. I'm going to tackle 3 topics that I consider paramount for a sustainable internet. A, consolidation of democratic governance and with pluri-stakeholders, promotion of equity in access, and the gift for both social and economic development. Internet is fostering greater information in the world in our lives. Statistics made it clear there's a boom in the amount of data and people connected. Over a decade, the number of people connected on the internet has grew by 4, leaping to over 150 million people, 150 billion users nowadays. It is accessed daily for over a billion users, and this number nearly doubles on the number in the number of active users within a month. In Brazil, it's no different. Over half of the Brazilian population access the internet frequently, more and more via their smartphones. There's an estimated 4G number of lines in Brazil of over 170 million by the end of this year. Many people say that the number of people that buy online has grown a lot. Last year, we had over 44 billion reais in transactions and $2 trillion globally last year. Another area that was radically affected by this transformation is the entertainment industry. In a short amount of time, music streaming platforms have taken over the market. In the USA, it accounts for over 70% of internet traffic. These are just a few examples of how the economy is digitalizing. Internet therefore impacts the lives of billions of people around the world and is seen by these people as a single global space. Governance is the first topic considered to be crucial for sustainability. And an unbalanced, privileged governance model for any of the relevant actors is to be avoided. Brazil has defined a multi-sectorial and a multi-governance model that can be summed up in the World Summit Plus 10 text. It is made multilaterally. It's got to be transparent and involve multi-stakeholders, involving many parts of the private sector and civil society and government, academic communities, and many other interested parties uh, according to their roles and responsibilities. It's a very important role, and I highlight that all sectors should should participate on the internet governance without disconsidering other parties involved. The Brazilian population is not only a speech that we use in international forums. It's a result of a successful experience in the country in this area. I'd like to provide a few examples. As you well know, and you'll be listening about them throughout the course, I'm going to mention them briefly. In the institutional field, the example acting of CGIBR has inspired many countries around the world. In the normative field, the Internet Bill of Rights has greatly impacted, not only due to its content, but also because of its open and democratic aspect of construction. Internationally, along with the mentioned forums, we've been trying to act as a leader in this debate. I'd like to mention Net Mundial and another event in João Pessoa. Globally, I believe we're giving a step towards the correct direction, but there's still to be done for the effective enforcement of ICANN globally. We need to deepen the mechanisms of accountability of the organization and tackling crucial organizations related to the role of the states in decision making and also jurisdiction. But a balanced democratic governance is useless if internet is a space of exclusion. We now know that half of those population accesses the internet, but this information is not complete. A recent survey published by IDU shows that 1 in every 2 people that use internet in the world, but this proportion changes in developing countries where only 1 in every 7 people access the internet. The difference is even clearer when we compare continents. While in Africa, over 75% of the population does not use the internet. In Europe, only 20% does not use the internet. In Americas, 35% of the people do not use the internet. In Brazil, a recent survey of Citio.br showed the national framework. 49% of Brazilians do not access internet at home. In northern Brazil, only 38% of the population has internet at home. And in southeastern Brazil, we have a 60% people using internet. In the lower classes, we have very few people accessing the internet, and in the upper classes, we have 5 to 18% of the people accessing the internet. In the rural areas, people are totally disconnected, and in big cities, we have 37% not connected to the internet. We have to universalize the telecommunication services to make internet access possible. But not only a legal commitment is required, we need to create access possibilities for people. I think Brazil has a great challenge while facing this challenge. I'd like to mention a few initiatives that are going to be tackled more deeply by other authorities throughout the event.
We have this important history about boosting the broadband and access. The National Plan of Broadband had its first step in 2010. The broadband program in schools was had the participation of the operational companies, and we have expanded 4G internet, and it also enabled the explosion of connections using the mobile phones. And we have new informations, but our peers of Anatel and MCT will explore this topic. We also remind you of the public points of access, like the cultural centers that have taken connections to faraway localities. And we also have the pioneer experience of GSAT and also the Amazonian experience of the satellite for defense and communication. These are all examples of our attempt to surpass this challenge of connectivity. But this is a global challenge, and we require a lot of reflection about connecting the next billion of inhabitants, and it was an initiative that was led by IGF, the Brazilian Internet Steering Committee. And I will talk about this last challenge, and I will have some figures about how internet is impacting life for millions of people across the world and affecting economy and life in society. But this means that people's life has enhanced the data of internet and penetration in an electronic platform and others topics that shows the expansion of the digital world. And we can't forget the focus that we have that internet should be assessed by its capacity of promoting the economical development and social development. The 2030 agenda of UN states that the ITCs and the interconnections, globally speaking, has this great potential to accelerate the human progress and reduce digital abuse and develop knowledge of society of knowledge. So we are into this debate to develop the progress of Brazil, and we has discussed that in 2016 in Mexico as well. So I believe that Brazil is walking through the right path, and in this very stage, we are very advanced with two public policies that are crucial for the benefits of internet and digital technology to reach everyone. And these are the digital strategy and the national plan for Internet of Things. We have faced this need of public policies for the digital world, and we try to work addressing the digitalization of economy, the government digitalization, the stimulus for in technology and investment, the enhancement of the access to the internet, and also internet security and a reliable environment of digital internet and improving the governance of the internet. So this definition of strategy will comprehend this global debate, and we are meeting sectorially, and we are also making consultations. Public consultations will also be made, and they will be open. And the strategy will be ready in the second term of this year, and will be a very relevant policy for the country. The plan for IoT is another very important initiative of MCTIC. It will bring a lot of impact in economy and social life. And the goal of this policy is to improve the development by using IoT with the support of private initiative and seeking for quality of life and improving efficiency and the commercial balance of product and service in Brazil. We will speak about the impact in society, the regulatory environment, and we will rule and enable technology. And we also will talk about talent and capacitation, and also international of Brazilian production. An example of this strategy is that the plan is being built through this open debate and broad debate, and we have had the support of the National Development Bank and the McKinsey consulting group, and also we will involve academia, private sector, and government, and it has passed through this open and broad public consultation process. So these are examples as we are able to shape public policy to guarantee the digital improvement is translated into development. So we have to foster this kind of initiative to be boosted in countries like Brazil. Thank you very much. Thank you, Marcos Toscano, to bring the message from Maximiliano Maranhão from the Ministry of Science, Technology, Innovation, and Communications. And you have highlighted the role of multi-stakeholders and the challenges of Internet and Internet of Things. And I will give the floor to Carlos Oliveira, who is representing the delegation of the European Union to Brazil. Good morning. I had prepared my speech in English, but since we have so many Portuguese-speaking people in this audience, I think it was more productive to simply speak in Portuguese. Like the poet said, my native land is the Portuguese language. So I'd like to thank the organizers of this event, and I would like to congratulate this organization because this initiative will give continuity of these experiences that we have been developing for the world, and we have also improved globally the governance of internet, and we should improve it even more in a way that we can use it as a tool to foster the economical development and also citizenship. And at the same time, it's a privilege for me to somehow transmit my testimony to this generation that will have as a responsibility to translate these good intentions into something that is practical and tangible. So the core of my presentation and speech is to share ideas about how the European Union is facing the challenges on the internet, and this is very relevant for our collective future. We have to speak about the digital world of tomorrow and today, and how should this technology contribute to a better future and a more sustainable future that is marked by equality, and on the other hand, to develop and or contribute for this equal comprehension of the way we are able to manage this process of change. I won't repeat the design of the president has did about the great changes that we have been seeing lately about the mobile computation and the pervasive use of the cloud and Internet of Things. All this is a set of developments that has as a consequence to attenuate this difference between the physical and virtual world. These are two realities that are interchanging, and we now don't know when one starts and the other starts. So we have this very important role. For instance, the new trends in the artificial intelligence, and that will enable this interaction involving the human reasoning and also the intentions of humans connected to machines. And all this has created this scenario in which internet and the ITCs are not only mere tool to automatize the daily tasks, but also what is here to be debated is the invention and change of business models and ways of working that will surpass all dimensions of our daily lives. The way that as we entertain ourselves, the way we communicate with each other, the way we socialize with one another. So this is the fourth industrial revolution, and the the scope is so wide that it goes well beyond the industrial segment, in fact. One of the important things that comes with this change from the point of view of coordination, we shouldn't forget that internet, as any other technology, has to serve people, and it shouldn't limit the capacity of people to access citizenship and to affirm its collectiveness in this debate space. So internet should aim people, and people should be in the center of this process. So with this in mind, the European Union 2 years ago started this initiative that aims at adapt this framework and the changes that I has just described. So this process we call is called a unique digital market. So you may say that this is a very European thing, but in reality we are talking about 28 different countries, countries that are very different among themselves. They speak different languages, different cultures, and we think that this experience of uniqueness should be shared with our partners and with the rest of the world as well. Because I believe there are many positive aspects in this process that should be improve the future. One of the aspects that we could include in this scenario, it has to be with the legal framework that generates a lot of activities that are related to our daily lives. For instance, privacy. We have huge changes, so different generations, they understand differently the importance of privacy. And also we have the need of ensuring minimal security methods for protecting the private life. And we also should bear in mind the very important role of digital content and also mobility of people, the fact that you only because you're crossing this border, geographic border, you cannot access other contents. I myself contributed for this, to produce this, and we have to ponderate about the online platforms. Could they be the social platform or the trade platforms? And we should also assure that there's this predictability, but also we shouldn't forget the collective interest. And these are all matters that we should consider in this digital debate. And we are discussing that with the countries which are part of the European Union, and we are very much interested in sharing experiences and ideas about the way we could address all these matters. The idea of this unique digital market is not to create this fortress in Europe, but we should try to think in a collective way of how we should address all these issues that I just mentioned so that we are able to produce the collective interest. Of course, that we have different perspective about service providers. We have to offer a legal framework in which each sector can develop their activities with some predictability and legal security, but we should also protect the interest of consumers in this balanced environment that will improve the competitions among operators and to prevent these monopolies, for instance.
Therefore, we have a number of wide questions to be discussed. We started disclosing this since May 2016. There's a number of public queries, especially in the European Parliament, where players from all over the world can take part. And the goal is to create a legal environment which is balanced and gives certain security to all interested parties. I'd like to talk about a new topic that was mentioned by Marcos. It has to do with the role of information technology while fostering an inclusive agenda and a sustainable development agenda. It is true that we now face very important challenges, and unfortunately, we see daily events that remind us, in despite of sadism of some, it is very important for us to get ready for that. Environmental aspects, climate changes, clean energy sources, most of all, a responsible behavior in natural resources consumption are very important aspects. So this is connected to information technologies. In European context, we've seen this, but also on a global scale, that we've seen that information technology plays a very important role while fostering this type of behavior, so people can more clearly and more immediately appreciate the consequences of their choices in their daily lives. The matter now is, well, if we think about the amount of countries, the set of countries and nations that now face immediate problems that have to do with the necessities to tackle challenges in terms of something that is reportable, sanitary care, health care, access to energy, and information technology matters, seems to be paramount in the European Union. In the European Union, we don't think this is a good way to tackle the matter. In fact, there's a great potential to bring a very more efficient answer when we think with the help of the technology evolution. A few examples have been mentioned regarding the impact that has been seen in some areas regarding the disclosure and accessibility of information technologies. But for example, we've had reports and narratives on a number of countries where we had cases, for example, in Africa, where we have a whole continent. There's more vulnerable in this regard in terms of development. And it shows that in many cases, the countries that are in a less advanced developing stage do not necessarily have to go through all the stages that were faced by their more developed partners, because technologies now allow us to skip steps. The English expression leapfrogging, which means to skip, to leap some steps, which makes sense when you are in a process, in a learning process of evolution. But where in other cases, we can perfectly avoid these intermediary steps. I now think about the fact that in a country like Kenya, there's a very important part of their GDP that is acquired not only through the traditional bank system, but through mobile banking. This greatly impacts income resources from agricultures, from farmers, because they can more fastly and they can access the market with more balance. They're often responsible for adding value and price to the product, but this price wouldn't reflect in their income. Just an example. There are many other environments around the world. Now, what is paramount for this is raise awareness on that access should be more universal and should be easier to internet and global communication networks. Marcus mentioned that we have some interesting data. I should say that unlike common opinion, common sense, even in geographic spaces that is supposedly presented as one of the highest qualities of life, which is the Europe case, we don't have these problems. We're more concerned about with more inclusive environment. We worry about space cohesion as well, and we want to share this with you. In developed countries, access to broadband internet is made by less than 10%, accounts for less than 10% of the average profitability. So in other countries, this can be over 30%, and in Africa, some figures show something about 64% of the average income. Of course, is a big obstacle in people's training while being able to explore this potential. So in our opinion, it's very important to support this type of initiatives. From the European Union standpoint, we have a special effort in this regard. So we have a political orientation that we're going to develop in the future in our cooperation activities to help development and make the digital aspect as a central element of our cooperation and development strategy. Digital is not luxury. It is something essential to train new generations on the potential that can be explored in this regard. It is critical. I'm not going to repeat myself, repeat the old story of the fisherman and the sugarcane, but giving people access to internet means enabling them to build their future and to empower them, giving them the possibility to define their future. I have a few more examples on potential developments for this new strategy. Beyond the new availability, internet availability in terms of infrastructure, in terms of communication infrastructure, and the message of Secretary of Commissioner Marks gave us some examples of what can be made available in terms of generalizing and giving this type of access. There's actually a human dimension that should be associated to this process. We now mention, we mean training a whole generation for digital literacy. It means telling people how to use. That doesn't mean how to tell. Doesn't mean telling people how to use a smartphone, but rather the implication of using such tools in their day-by-day lives. It is not only a work tool, but also a socialization tool. Meaning, it's more important. And considering the implications of information disclosure throughout the different publication instruments provided by the internet. So I think we do have a deficit that should be tackled, which is training people to understand the digital world and developing a certain critical spirit regarding what they have in their hands. Naturally, supporting entrepreneurs and digital innovation is paramount to help tackling community problems and cause an economy to happen, not only using computers for transactions that were traditionally made manually, but to reinvent business processes, several aspects of our day-by-day inspection, public administration, the way we generate companies, the way we can access markets, somehow challenging and having a breakage effect on the sector that we often had a limited impact in terms of added value, but we're responsible for aggregating an important part of income generated by many activities. The last point I'd like to address with you means internet governance. I'd like to confirm that on behalf of the European Commission, we're consistently and continuously making multi-stakeholder efforts towards internet governance. The idea is to fundamentally make efforts and get involved in this process, all the governments and a number of players, both public and private, from the civil society, in order to reinforce the connection between land players and other decision-making processes developed in this level. In this regard, we have cooperation. We developed cooperation with Brazil. We would like to carry on. We have internet aspects on the Internet Bill of Rights regarding collective assets that we would like to highlight as an example of how a cooperation can be developed. A cooperation that is a win-win relationship where parties look for mutual benefits and not a victory of one over another. That's a good example of the type of partnership that we've developed with other nations and other countries. We're for new development of these platforms, not only in geographic terms, but also with participants. If we see what happens in many different sectors, we see there's actually a crucial um, point of view in terms of these sectors. In the area of bank and financial services, we have seen that in developed countries, there's a dramatic decrease of job positions in these places of 30 to 40%. We need to make sure that these people that lose their jobs in this area will be able to find a way to provide for their lives in the future and contribute to society. Another reference to the originally European project of the Global Internet Policy Observatory, which is actually a tool to monitor internet policies, technology developments around the world. This tool helps us in our collective relationship in this regard, because we can only make rational decisions if if we are informed in order to make decisions on the future. Digital technologies do have potential to bring significant content on the fight against poverty and in favor of justice and inclusion around the world. This is gonna bring us a sustainable future for us all. The European Union wants to include Portugal in this process, along with other partners, and we should also discuss with all other interested parties regarding agriculture, education, health, and all sectors where digital area can make a difference. This is the only way, with a collective effort, that we can make mutual changes and definitely impact the future. I'd like to finish off by challenging all the participants to help us prepare this future, which is greatly going to be the future we are all going to build. And please advance on this reflection, and I count on you I count on you for a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos Oliveira, for sharing your concerns and challenges, and also the concerns and challenges of European Union with us. And let's start our Q&A. We have from 15 to 20 minutes to debate. Please don't be shy. We are here for this purpose, to debate together and ask questions and talk. Good morning, everyone. I have one observation and two questions. My name is Florencia. I'm from Internet Without Frontiers, Brazil. And my observation is about the composition of the tables in this morning. I'm very pleased to listen to the considerations about the gender equality that we had among scholarships, and I hope that next year we also have this equality in the table representatives. And I know that this is much more complicated because, of course, the representatives they appoint who is in the table. But the first question goes to Marcos Toscano about the widening of the access to broadband, considering that we have 100 million in infrastructure of telecommunication, and it implies in deregulation of the public policies and how this could contribute for the access to broadband in the country. And the second question is for the representative of European Union, Carlos Oliveira. We would like you to tell us about Ela Link project. That is this project that involves this submarine cable that is connecting Brazil and Europe with this point in Africa. So this is a very large project and aims at bringing more connectivities because up until now the communications between Latin America and Europe would pass through the United States. And it also values the relationships among universities. And my question is related to this new project that has this plan to happen in the next years. What is the governance involved, and how the social society could participate, and also how could we improve our access and democracy by the arrival of this cable? Any more questions? Two more questions. You could answer these first. What's your name again? Florencia. I'd like to first of all give this disclaimer. We will have representatives from Anatel, the telecommunication agency, and also and they will be responsible for discussing this model. I understand this is a controversial topic because we have new lines of debates, and we have been discussing this again due to that, and they will be experts who can present you the state of the art and how we are working right now. Of course, I don't want to comment on on that, but I think that the impact is to improve the process. So I'm sure that these two matters are related. We have this sector which is improving the structure that is key to access areas which are not covered, and this is very important. And of course, it shouldn't harm the due interests of states. So it's a matter of balance. We have to understand how we're going to provide investments without harming any public principle of management. And I confess you that I don't have the concrete data about this discussion about this new model. And I agree with you that they are very much related, these two topics, and this is a very important step to improve the debate. Now Carlos is going to answer the other question. Thank you, Florencia, for giving me the opportunity to comment on about something that is very important, and it results from the private and public interest. I will explain it better. In fact, the communications between Europe and the south of the American continent, it's something that is very complicated. I have a daily experience about that, and in fact, there was this agreement involving Europe and Brazil to develop this project, this private project, that aims at building this link using optical fiber in between Brazil and Europe, and the linking point will happen at the south of Lisbon in Portugal, and here in South America, I believe that the first point is Fortaleza, and on its way it will also pass through other points in order to improve the connectivity in other countries. So this link will also uh, be enlarged in the future. It will pass through all the Latin American countries. Most of them will have contact with the oceans, and those which don't have will pass through land. But first of all, the European Union has decided to finance this initiative in an indirect way, that is by purchasing this capacity so that the global network of research and education. So it means that we are investing around 25 million euros, and I think that this is very important to give the entrepreneurs and also the private players to have these expectations of return on their investments and also to cover their operational costs. And we believe that this will be operational at the end of next year. And we believe that this will be accessible to all universities and all the research institutes that are part of the global network that is being developed right now. And it will be part of this common space of linkage between Europe and Latin America. And the cost won't be all consumed by this link, and it will be available for all the other actors, both public and private, that will be able to access this infrastructure to improve their access and interaction in this global internet network. So we will have more effective ways of uh, data for data traffics, and in the future it will be available for all the community. I believe it answers your question, but we can also exchange ideas directly later on. Good morning. My name is Veloso. I'm from Anatel. And the topic I'm going to speak about, we had this contact in this last event in Brasilia. And although this topic had started in security of data, it was also about banking. It was a way of access for low income users to banking. They could access banking. Dr. Carlos, when you said about the banking access in Africa countries, I think this is a very interesting topic, and I would like to understand what are the initiatives of the Europe when you're speaking about smartphones and mobile devices. In Brazil, we know that there's this bill to access of these low-income people to internet operators, and also for banking, that is a very regulated sector in the country. So I'd like to draw this parallel with this Brazilian proposal for banking access through smartphones, and how is it working in the European Union. I confess that I'm not aware. I have been to Brasilia 2 months back, and I'm not aware of the legal framework that is regulating the daily life of citizens in Brazil. So my knowledge is not rich enough to talk about this subject here in Brazil. But I think there's a key difference I believe that there's this banking network in Europe with this very dense uh, tissue. Although we have had some reductions in the last 3 years due to automation and also due to the design of the banking system. There's no specific regulations concerning the banking access through internet. There's a set of norms that is regulating the banking access, and they should have this maximum cost to all population, and it implies in a series of uh, measures that will ease the access through internet and but also through banking services using the branches, the bank branches, and also using the ITMs that are of public access. In the case of Europe, they are in general multi-bank ITMs. They are not associated to a single bank. And this is one of the requirements. They should be banking ATMs. And all of this results that in the European context that we are improving the access to the physical branches more than to the internet, because we have this population in which we have older ages, and it's very important that these people that are the elderly people, they would have to be literally digitalized to access this content through mobile devices. But we had the opportunity to share with our peers in Brazil our experience. And what I understand is that Brazil has different aspects in their initiatives. So I don't know if it answers your question, but we can talk later on. Good morning. My name is Ivana Serra from Mexico. I will ask to Carlos a question, and I will speak slowly. You have spoken about digital literacy and capacity and training, but besides teaching people on how to use the devices, you also talked about how to socialize and also how to use the internet as a working tool. And with that, you also mentioned that we had to support entrepreneurs. And I would like to know what kind of support there is in European Europe, and were you able to have this specific support to entrepreneurs? And also, do you have this internet providers, operators improvement as well to help them make people access the internet?
I'm gonna talk about this in Portuguese. I'm gonna reply this in Portuguese, other than mixing Portuguese and Spanish. There are three aspects that in European context are very important. One is precisely, as I said before, the we are a typically European country, which is different from South American countries, Latin America in general, which is actually the average age of people is higher. If on the on one hand, newer generations are able to use the internet, this is more complicated for people who are, let's say, 45 plus, that traditionally work in mechanic industry or traditional industries, and it's difficult to adapt them to the digital world. It is a great challenge That's why we need in the national government levels a number of initiatives to foster this type of digital literacy, so they learn to use devices and also to understand the general impacts of what it is to be available on the internet in matters such as the notion of privacy, information protection. These are things that are not part of the traditional day by day of people. So that's why it's so important to train them for such dimensions. Regarding entrepreneurs, this is a very important aspect because there's a general movement right now that we should digitalize the industry. So just a quick note, by industry I mean economy in a general sense. And one of the challenges posed is to train traditional economy sectors, considering that it should be digitally followed up, considering individual initiatives that want to offer their services online. They want to also offer their traditional services online, things like agriculture, craftsmanship, food. There are areas that play a very important role that has been played by national governments and regional administrations for this type of in this regard. The 2020 Horizon research line aims especially at small and medium enterprises that want to foster their digital business. It means to totally rethink sometimes the way they sell their products traditionally. I'm going to give an example. Uber is a form of rethinking human transportation from one place to another. It impacts what the traditional taxi driver and traditional tourists, but we don't have to think about the direct impact. We have to think about the potential it offers. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Marcelo. I'm from Bolivia. I'm going to speak in Portuguese. It's going to be easier for you guys. First off, thank you for your talk. The topic is really relevant. I'm one of the academic stakeholders. I develop security researches at Unicamp Brazil, and this is my question. Given that we're talking about future impacts, one of the impacts we've been analyzing a lot, especially in the European Union, is the automation, especially considering big data and IA. Within 10 to 15 years, industry is going to be highly automated and jobs will be lost. What kind of policies is the UE having for such problems? And also, if you can talk about Latin America in general. I find it hard to predict the future. However, there used to be a Portuguese soccer player. I cannot talk about the result before the game ends. We've we've had contact with a lot of entrepreneurs and trade unions. In some countries, in some countries have a very traditional industry, just like Germany. And what we've seen is this: generalized automation is seen as a threat and an opportunity at the same time. There are many opportunities where Europe had to face an absolutely terrible competition compared to low salary countries. I mean, very low salary countries. I mean, one tenth of the salary. And through training, intensive training of industry line of auto industry lines, training the workers, we could retain jobs in Europe that would otherwise have moved to other places because humans have intervened exactly on things that us humans can do a lot better than any other robot. And for activities that are repetitive with very small added value and didn't add much to the product chain. For example, I'm going to say this, I'm not really sure about the figures I'm going to mention. In a typical smartphone, for example, that is produced in China, every 100 euro of the sale product, maybe 15% is value arising from China, which means that there's 85% that comes from other elements in the value chain. And something that's very important in the digital economy context is understanding more deeply the value supply control. That's why platforms have such a critical aspect. That this is what many times determines the way how many intervenients can maximize their contribution to the value chain. This is a this discussion is not in the scope of this event, which is the traditional versus digital industry economies. I love to talk about this, but here's a challenge for this course to occasionally reflect on this matter. I'd like to complement by reminding you guys that this challenge is going to be even bigger for Latin American countries. Carlos brought us a very interesting example about the smartphone value chain, an advanced one like the iPhone. We know that iPhone graph, where almost the whole product of the final product is basically related to IP, and it goes to California. But we're not in the same position as Americans and Europeans. We're still trying to compete for the 15% from China. I mean, it's very difficult for us because there's a number of elements. Many of them are justifiable that make our the productivity and the average work value be higher than China. Then we have the first evaluation of how we can work on a problem such as this one, which is to invest in digital economy. The fact is that Brazil and many other countries in South Cone and Latin America as a whole are now awakening for more ambitious policies and foster their industries not only to adopt more developed technologies used in richer areas, but also to start innovating and using their own technologies and take part in this chain with some capacity to be a leader. There are some estimates on the impact of digital industry on jobs varies from publication to publication. I read a paper. I'm not sure if it was from McKinsey. I'm not really sure. And they said that half the jobs would end in the world by 2020. It was like a catastrophe. And there was another one. So figures in the size of catastrophe change according to the paper. Given that it is a giant global problem, we're going to have a radical change in the workforce in a short term base. We're going to have to think about a global mechanism to understand how this post-work world is going to work. In terms of public policies, the government is not really able in terms of uh, prac- in practical terms for an apocalypse scenario. We work with more predictable scenarios, not really trying to predict the future, but something practical. Our strategy is to bet on the development of its digital economy. That's all. Well, we need to finish off. Unfortunately, I'd like to thank Carlos Oliveira and Marcos Toscano. Would you like to say anything? Just a quick note. When we talk about digital platforms, the challenge that Marcos said that Brazil now faces is curiously an European development. When I said before that we were concerned that some of the digital platforms are based the base is focused on a single part of the universe concerned us because this kind of problem poses challenges with control and equity of access. We're very interested in taking actions along with other partners in terms of finding a common point for equality in this process. And it is actually a challenge, I would say, that we have with Brazil, but we can work as partners because we share the diagnosis on these matters. Well, now let's finish off. I'd like to thank you all for your questions. I'd like to say that we're now on for a lunch break. We're offering a small brunch at the lobby if you want to go out to have lunch, but preferably stay here. Please do not go to the beach. We'll be back at 2. Thank you.